Hey everyone, welcome back to Reading with Tatiana. Today I'm doing my book review on Verity by Colleen Hoover. This is my second time reading a Colleen Hoover book, and I gave this book a 2 out of 5. Before I get into my full book review, I would like to do my Booktuber Shoutout today to Ann Novella. I came across her channel recently because she was sharing her struggles as a new booktuber and not gaining a lot of subscribers. I really enjoyed the discussion that she posted. If you want to check out her video down below, and I'll also link that specific video in the description down below. And as always, I'll appreciate if you like my content to hit the subscribe button. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you have read Verity by Colleen Hoover, I would love to hear your opinion because I'm open to having my opinion change, but I almost feel like I am never going to read a Colleen Hoover book again. The genre of this book I would put in a thriller romance. From what I understand, it is Colleen Hoover's first dive into thriller, which is pretty exciting, and this book was also published in 2018. A bit about the author, Colleen Hoover. If you've watched my previous review, I will kind of cover the same facts about her. She was born in 1979 in Texas, and she was actually a social worker and did teaching jobs until she started writing later in her life. She got super popular due to Book Talk in 2021, but she has been publishing books since 2011. A bit about the story and characters. So we first meet Lowen, who is a struggling writer, and she has been taking some time off from writing because she's been taking care of her sick mother, who has also unfortunately recently passed. And we'll come to learn from taking care of her mother that her and her mom have a very tumultuous relationship, so it wasn't the best. Anyway, so one day her literary agent reaches out to her to say that he has a meeting for her with this new potential client. We also come to learn that her and her agent previously were sleeping together and actually dating for a bit, but it eventually didn't work out. So this kind of gives you like a premise of like Lowen and maybe her insecurities in herself, for sleeping with this guy that she probably shouldn't, and also like the relationship dynamic there. Anyway, so she meets this client or potential client, and basically it's the husband of Verity Crawford, who is a very prolific writer who was writing a 9-part book series, and she finished the first 6 books, but she got into a accident recently where she basically is a vegetable. So her husband Jeremy works with her agent to find a author, which is Lowen, to finish the last 3 book of her series. Jeremy, the husband, lets Lowen knows that Verity really liked her book and felt the style was very similar, and it'd be wonderful if Lowen could live in the Crawford residence for a bit, just so she could have easy access to Verity's office and any previous works or notes for the series to help her co-author the rest of the series. And of course, true to any romance books, of course, Lowen and Jeremy have some kind of spark or some attraction, which I found really strange because, his wife is in this tragic accident, and the instant love to me and attraction to me was just like, ugh, just not my type of scene. Anyways, I digress. So basically, Lowen is living in the Crawford residence, and she's working in Verity's office, and she stumbles across this manuscript of an autobiography that Verity has written. And in this manuscript, Verity reveals that, she was very madly in love with Jeremy and details all these like crazy sex adventures they have. Again, if you know my reviews, I'm not really a fan of reading these details. I feel like there's really no need to, but anyways, so this manuscript has lots of like sexy, steamy details of Verity and Jeremy's sex life, which obviously then makes Lowen super attractive to Jeremy because the way he pleases women and all that kind of stuff, blah, blah, blah. So the manuscript then also talks about how Verity's love for Jeremy was so true and so strong that when they had kids, that she actually became jealous of the kids, and she actually tried to terminate her pregnancy by herself. And also later on we find out that 2 of their daughters, who are twins, actually die a few years apart, and the manuscript kind of hints at maybe Verity was responsible for one of the children's death. So this becomes this whole like can of worms that's open because Lowen's working in this person's house where she suspects that the woman maybe killed her own kids, and does Jeremy deserve to find the truth? And her and Jeremy have this budding romance, and she also then starts seeing that maybe Verity isn't as in a vegetable state as everyone believes. I don't want to ruin the book too much, but as you can see, there's lots of drama, lots of like boundaries being crossed, no communication, and all that kind of stuff. So I can see why this book is so juicy, and I do believe it was a great idea, but the execution for me just wasn't it. So that's basically a summary of the book and a bit of my personal opinions on this book as well. Common themes that I found in this book for me, number one, is what does love mean? Was love different between two lovers, husband and wife, and parent and child? Because in this book they talk about that a lot. And is love really limitless or is it limited? And is it fair to be jealous of your kids if your partner loves your kids more? So these are things that I think is really interesting to read about and read about these characters' opinions, because I have no children. So I like to think that if I had kids, they would be above everything. But what do you think? If you had kids, would they be above your partner, or is it equal, or is it limitless? Who knows? Other common theme I noticed is what's it like being a parent. This book kind of reminded me when we read about Verity's autobiography and her not obvious love for her kids. Reminded me a lot of this other book I reviewed a few weeks ago called The Push by Ashley Audrain. So I see this trend. I think it's great that it's creating space for women to voice not having an initial connection with your kids. Obviously this book is fictional and obviously it's very extreme, but it's cool to see these conversations being told in these stories. As I gave this book a 2 out of 5, there were lots and lots of things I didn't like. So the first thing that, when I was reading this book, I was able to just, go along with it. And even though it wasn't my genre or my type of writing style, I was like, you know what, I would give this book a chance because she is popular for a reason. But one pinnacle moment in this book that made me give this book a 2 out of 5 and almost a 0 out of 5 was there was a scene, and mild spoiler for you, but I kind of hinted that Jeremy and Lowen get together, is Jeremy and Lowen have their first sexual encounter, and Jeremy doesn't have a condom, and he says so, and then Lowen said that she's not on the birth control pill, and yet they still had sex, and eventually he does come in her, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is so irresponsible. And the way the book sets up the scene is that it's almost the passion is so strong that you can't control it. And yeah, sure, you can do that if you're in a relationship that's long term, or you have this commitment, but these two people don't have an existing commitment to each other, and his sick wife is upstairs bedridden. It just made me so upset to read this book. And I know it's fictional, but I feel like young women could read this book and get the wrong idea and be like, oh, it's so romantic that if someone's willing to forgo contraception to have sex with you because it means they're really into you. So that just made me really upset, and that book was just not great, and I hated that scene, and I hated the rest of the book because of that. Other reasons I didn't like this book, similar to the other Colleen Hoover book I read, Reminders of Him, was there was poor communication, not respecting boundaries, not respecting oneself and standing up for yourself, not disengaging from a situation that's clearly toxic, and also all three characters, Jeremy, Lowen, and Verity, were all not redeemable. It all had terrible qualities. We're all terrible people, and it felt like they tried to justify their own actions because of love or attraction or whatever, but they weren't justifiable, and they weren't great people, and they should all stay single and seek therapy separately. Of course, I gave this book a 2 out of 5, so there's some things I do like. So two things that I will give to Colleen Hoover for this book is her books are really easy to read. I think if you're a quick reader, you can read them in one day. And also the ending is an interpretive ending, which I always enjoy because that leaves room for discussion. So Colleen Hoover, I'll give you props for that. On Goodreads, this book got an average of 4.42 out of 5, which, as you guys know, is pretty high, especially considering it's been out since 2018. However, the reviews are very divisive. You either loved it or you hated it, and I'm on the spectrum of I hated it. So reasons why people didn't like it was, again, I said earlier, it was a good idea, but it was executed poorly. The writing was very, very hard to read, especially the sex scenes, and just these people, they're adults and they're responsible and they have kids and they just living off of passion and yeah, that's a reality of life, but it was just hard to see this happen, this situation. And the protagonist was very annoying when she reacted to the manuscript, which I totally agree, because if she truly reacted the way that she was saying in the book after she read Verity's manuscript, any sane person would leave the house and leave the situation despite it being a really high paying job. But I guess if Lowen was in a tough financial situation, but I don't know, it's just found it really hard to believe she would keep herself in that environment. Really good reviews is people thought it was a great page turner, couldn't put it down, thought all the characters were super dynamic and had all these struggles. And from what I understand, it is Colleen Hoover's first thriller book. So I think for her true diehard fans, I've read all her romantic books, this book was probably super exciting. I remember for me, when I read my first thriller, which is Silent Patient, it really blew my mind. But then after when I read people's reviews, some people thought it was very predictable. So I can see why people would love this book if it's their first dive into the thriller genre. Why I think you should read this book. I think if you're a Colleen Hoover fan, this book is probably for you. It seems like a lot of people love her books and love this book. You should also read this book if you like smut, you like romance, and you like a lot of plot twists. Now I'll share how this book made me feel, because my favorite thing to ask people about a book is how it made them feel. Because if you ask me a week, a day, a month, a year from now, I probably won't remember what the book was exactly about, but I'll remember how it made me feel. So Verity by Colleen Hoover. This book, as you can probably tell from a description of the sex scene between Jeremy and Lowen, it made me upset. It made me upset that people were not responsible for their actions. It made me upset that people were manipulative towards each other. And it just made me upset that they weren't good people. And this book wasn't good. I'm sorry. I'm obviously frustrated that I read it. That is my book review for Colleen Hoover's Verity. Thank you for watching until the end, especially if you're a Colleen Hoover fan. It's just not the book for me, but Eliza's Bookshelf had recommended a other book by Colleen Hoover after my first review of Reminders of Him. She had recommended Verity, and she also recommended, I think, All Your Perfects. So I would give Colleen Hoover one more chance before I write her off. And if you want to join me next time, I'm going to start this book today called The Bread the Devil Knead by Lisa Allen-Agostini. I don't actually know what this book is about. I just remember it came across my TBR like years ago and added to my Goodreads, and it was available on my library, so I picked it up. So that will be my next book review. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!